Okay, so in the previous tutorial we have seen how we can add these start animations for our play character movement. You can see based on the cardinal direction that we are triggering the movement, that specific start animation will be driven. Okay, so if I go to the characters animation blueprint, and this is the anim graph, so here we have that state which is start state. Now we can do is we can add somewhat similar transition to stop state as well, which means like whenever the character stop the movement, it does not uh, it does not directly go to the idle state. Instead of that, it will first play a stop animation and then go to the idle state, and so it will be much more realistic. See? Currently it's just snapping to cycle state to idle state instantaneously, but let's see how we can uh, add that stop transition. But first let's remove this logging message. I think it's on, yeah, it's in multiple places, I believe. Let's go to the components. Yeah, so this is the place actually we need to remove the log inside the set rotation mode function. I think at the debugging session I may have added that sort of a print string, so we don't need that. Yeah, plus I think we have a log string message here as well. So if I check the output log, it just keep printing this cardinal direction. Again, I think this was added due to some debugging thing, but we don't need that anymore. Therefore, we can get rid of it. So inside this update velocity data function, at the very last I have been added that log string. So let's remove that thing out and let's clear the log. Yeah, now there is no continuous log that is being printed on the terminal. Okay, now let's go to the ABP locomotion anim graph locomotion state machine. Now let's add another state called stop. Okay, and soon after the stop state is finished, I can jump to the idle, and there can be multiple different ways where I can come to this state. So instead of plugging from multiple different state, the easiest way is add a state alias like we did in this idle sources. So in idle sources, if we have multiple idle sources that need to be pointed out for a specific state or states, then we can use that idle alias to define what are the state that I'm going to jump from, right? So similarly, let's add a state alias for stop as well, and I'll rename this as jog sources. Because most of the time whenever a specific jog start or cycle state has been finishes, we may need to jump to this stop state. But if you have a better state alias name, just go for it. This is just a name to identify a specific state alias. Okay, so there can be two jog sources basically. Either it can be a start to stop jump or even cycle to stop jump, because let's say we just instantaneously given an input and cancel it out, so the start animation will be keep playing without going to the cycle animation. Therefore, soon after that start animation finishes, we may need to jump back to the stop state and play that specific stop animation. That's why this start state is there. And similarly, in most common scenarios, we are starting once a cycle state has been ended, because let's say character is moving in the level for a certain period amount of time. So which means the cycle animation has been playing, and soon after the input is disabled, or the player stop moving, it should go to the stop state and play that stop animation. That's why there are two possible from start states for this specific uh, state jump. Okay? So jog sources can be go to the idle state as well instead of playing stop animation. For example, let's say if we don't have a valid stop animation to be played, instead of searching for a stop animation, we can directly go to the idle animation and play that specific idle animation. Right? I think we have done somewhat similar thing to here as well. So if you remember, if it doesn't have a valid start animation to be played, instead of going to the start state, we simply jump to the cycle state. So somewhat countermeasure has been applied to here as well, to prevent the character remain in some undefined state. Okay, and then obviously there could be a possible jump from jog sources to stop state like this. Okay, that's the mapping. But if I compile and play it now, it doesn't apply any changes because I haven't had any animation transitions or states mappings to here. Okay, so let's see how we can progress. So first I think we have to go to this stop state and let's add a sequence evaluator like before. So in this sequence evaluator as well, we need to make the sequence as dynamic, plus the explicit time should be dynamic because we are updating that specific explicit time for each frame. And this shouldn't be loop because it's a stop animation and it should play only once. Right, then you can plug it like this, and I think we don't need to expose this explicit time as a pin, therefore I can untick this one. Right, now first let's create a non-become relevant function, and I'll name this as what, yeah, maybe I can rename this as setup stop anim play, and I'll move it to the anim node functions category. Right, then we can get this node and convert to sequence evaluator, and I can set the sequence like this, and this should be taken from based on a specific cardinal direction. So I think we have done somewhat similar thing to this start state animal. So I'll copy this thing and go back to the stop state, setup stop animal function, and paste it here. Right. Then can simply return it, but it shouldn't be this start cardinal forward. Instead of that, we should define a set of new variables at our anim set. So let's go to the data struct locomotion is anim set. So here we have what, yeah, we have this jog structure. So let's go to that specific data structure, and yeah, we have added cycle cardinal, start cardinals, and let's add another one for stop cardinals, and this should be in the type of anim config. So I'll move it bit up here. Sorry, this shouldn't be the anim config, this should be anim cardinal, right? So I'll save it like that, and okay, this is not breaking, and let's go to the data table. Yeah, it's not broken. Let's go to the component and compile it. Yeah, so nothing has been broken. Okay, the save side, let's play it as well. Yeah, seems nothing's broken. Because whenever you make a change to a root level data structure, make sure to build it accordingly up until to that specific data table level. Otherwise, there can be some runtime inconsistencies where some of the compilations may fail at certain different components. So in order to avoid that, what we have to do is we have to manually go for each reference and save it and make sure it is good to go. If it is good to go, which means potentially there won't be any compiler conflicts. Okay, now we were at here, right? Now what we can do is we can go to that non-thread save functions, set animation data, and at the cardinals, now we have another pin that has been exposed called stop cardinals. So let's promote it to a variable called stop cardinals, and I believe this should be inside this anim sequence category. Okay, and plug the pin, and let's go back to that setup stop anim layer function, and instead of this start cardinal variables, let's add this one, and let's plug all the necessary matching pins. Okay, now we have that stop animation based variable mapping here, and now similarly what we have been done at the start animation, we have to advance the time, right? Because if you remember, at this start evaluator, a start sequence evaluator as well, we have been given the set explicit time as 0, and yeah, I think this thing should be added to this stop anim layer as well. So let's add this thing. Yeah, so ideally what we have been done was we have been mentioned specifically at the very first frame, or when the animation sequence become relevant, show that 0th position of the animation sequence, and by the time when the game is playing, for each frame we have to advance the time to keep continuously playing that specific animation sequence. So it has been done at this on update function for that start state. So if I go and show it to you, this is how it has been done. Similarly, we should done the same thing for the update stop anim layer function as well. But first I think we have to create that function at the sequence evaluator. At the on update, let's create a function called update stop anim layer. I'll move it to the anim node functions category, and I can simply go to this update start anim layer function, copy the same thing and paste it over here. Date context and node. Yeah, now what will happen is that for each frame when this sequence is updating, that specific animation will be played because we are advancing the time accordingly. Right, now I think we have almost okay with the state setup at the locomotion state machine. Now what we can do is we can do the possible jumps from these idle sources or jog sources. So first let's do a valid jump, which means top state to idle state. So we have to do somewhat similar checking like this. We have to check whether we have a valid stop anim and whether we can uh, uh, whether we are not playing start anim or something like that. Yeah. So to do that, what we can do simply let's create, I think there was those functions. Yeah, this one is under anim set category. Yeah. Similarly for this function as well, we have to check whether we have valid anim validities like this. So let's go to this set anim valid function. Let me quickly see. Yeah, and there let's add a new sequence here, so we can have some sort of a organized pin execution. Maybe I'll comment this thing called start cardinal validities. Right, and then let's get that stop cardinals, break it, and we have to get is valid pin, and let's promote it to a variable called is valid forward stop. Right, I can push it to the anim validities category. Similarly, let's check whether this one is valid and this one as well, and finally this one. And I can promote it to a variable called maybe backward stop, and it's valid left stop, and finally valid right stop. Right. So now we are having actually a set of like validity variables. Maybe later on we can do some optimizations. Maybe like we can create some better data structures to handle these sort of validities for each cardinal directions. But I think for the simplicity, let's keep the structure as follows, and later on we can do some code refactorings and optimizations. Right, so we are checking whether we have valid animation for each direction, and we are capturing their validity state. So I'll comment this thing as well called stop cardinal validities. Right, now similar to this is valid start anim, we can copy that thing and create a new function called is valid stop anim, and I'll assign it to the anim set category. But here, instead of these start validities, we have to plug stop validities, right? So forward stop, backward stop, left stop, and right stop. Right. Okay, now we have that function. So let's go to the anim graph locomotion, and here sorry, here inside the jog sources we can check whether we have a valid stop anim to be played or not, right? Yeah, plus I think if we do this jump, that would be fine, but maybe for multiple different rotation types we may have to add different conditions at this transition. But for now, for the simplicity, let's keep it as like this, and later on let's do the improvements. Right, so we have the transition from jog sources to stop. Yeah, let me quickly check my documentation. Yeah, and then we have a jump from stop to idle. And I think this can be done in automatic rule based fashion as well, that we have been done similar to start to cycle. Plus, if the anim set has been changed, we can jump to that idle state directly, right? Like we did in here. So I'll copy that thing. Yeah, this is on the priority order 1 and attach it to here. So in case if the anim set has been changed, whether we are remaining at the stop state, it directly jump to idle state. Plus, based on the second priority order, which is this transition pin, not this one, I'll make this as priority order 2, which means if this is not true, it will go to the priority order true. If the first priority order is not true, it will go to the priority order 2 and check whether it is leveraging or satisfying or not. So either way, I think soon after we played the stop animation, it should go to the idle state. Therefore, I can make it as automatic rule based transition like this. Okay. Yeah, and I think those are the transition from jog source to stop source, and jog sources to idle state is pretty much straightforward, that we have been done it here. So we are simply checking whether we have whether we doesn't have a valid stop anim at this transition. So let's get that function, and if it doesn't have a valid stop anim, then we don't need to go to the stop state. Instead of that, we can directly jump to the idle state. Right. Okay, now let's go to the dt anim set data table, and let's add set of stop cardinals to here. So I think it should be a mem unarmed jog forward stop, backward stop, left stop, and right stop. Okay, now let's test this thing. Yeah, I think there is a small bug we need to fix, because I can see at the very first step it plays that stop anim based on the cardinal direction, but after that it doesn't play any sort of animation. Plus, either way, it is buggy because we shouldn't ideally play the stop animation at the very first instance. So let's see why. Yeah, so the first issue I think I can easily see is this jump, because since we have jog sources specifically defined as a state alias, it perform this jump, I believe. So maybe we can get rid of this transition, because it is simply checking whether it doesn't have an acceleration, it jumps to this idle state, right? So I think we can move that logic to this jog sources transition. If it doesn't have an acceleration, I think it should be, yeah, maybe let's see, if it doesn't have an acceleration plus if it doesn't have a ready stop animation, we jump to this one, or maybe this should be a O function, right? I'm not quite sure, but let's try. If it doesn't have an acceleration, or if it doesn't have a stop animation to be played, we perform the jump from here to here. So I can get rid of this transition and let's play a test. Yeah, still playing stop animation only once. Okay, let's debug further. Right, the next issue I can see is at the idle sources state alias, we are only pointing idle to start or cycle jump only, but ideally it should be stop as well, because from stop state as well we can either go for a quick start state or cycle state instead of directly jump into the idle state, right? So that should be another fix. So let's play test again. Yeah, now I think start and cycle is playing, but it's not reaching. Yeah, start anime is playing, but it's not reaching to the cycle anime, right? But if I disable this one and play it again, it only play the stop animation. Yeah, so let's plug this thing. It play the start anime. Okay, let's debug it now. Yeah, I think I found the issue. Basically, it was issue at this jog sources to stop state transition issue. Because in this jog sources, which means when we are at cycle or start state, soon after it has been finishes, we are checking whether we can jump to stop source only if we have a valid anim or not. But we have to be aware we are not playing the start anim, right? Otherwise, if we keep playing the start anim, right, there is no way to jump to these states. Why? Because as the jog sources mentioned, the only way to jump from jog sources to idle or stop, it should be either remain in cycle or start state. But let's say if we remain in the start state, right, it can go to the cycle state automatically as well. So there can be some sort of a race condition, right, which means like at the runtime there can be having a race condition, right? There's a possible jump from here to here, plus there is a possible jump from here to here or here to here, right? It happens because of these transition logic checkings. right? So I think in order to actually the race condition happen at here because we are only checking whether we can jump to that specific stop state if we have valid stop pending or not. But additionally, I think we have to add one more check, which means we have to assure that we are not playing the start anim, right? Because I think if we play the start anim, we jump to here, and if we play start anim not boolean, we can jump to there, which means a stop state, right? Okay, now compile, save and play. Right, so the start and in place, cycle and in place, and see stop and in place. And if I move, yeah, stop and in place based on the cardinal direction, right? So you should be very careful when you are defining your state machines, because since you introduced this state aliases as well, there can be some race conditions happen in between your transitions. So in order to prevent that, you have to clearly specify what are the conditions that should be exactly satisfied to make that specific transition from state to state, right? Yeah, so I simply add this condition at this jump sources to stop state transition, and it will fix that issue that we had, right? Okay, right, so I think that's it for now, and maybe we can smoothen up these stop anims a little bit, because you see for the forward direction stop anim works pretty much fine, and the backward also it's fine, but left I think there is a bit of a foot sliding, right? See, because if you see that there is a bit of a foot sliding showing at the left cardinal stop, and the right cardinal stop it seems fine, okay? But we can make those improvements later on, but ideally our solution works now, right? So now initially we can play the start anim, then we reach to that cycle anim, and then it plays the stop anim soon after we stop movement. And it's not a instantaneous jump from cycle state to idle state. Here you can see we first play the stop anim and then jump to the idle state, right? So it is a bit more realistic than before, okay? Oh, this is for the strafing mode, but if I change it to the forward facing, ideally it should work as intended, right? It works. See, now the character is rotating, but the cardinal direction is resolving properly, right? So we don't, like, let's say if we are forward facing, we are moving to right side, we are not playing that right forward cardinal direction animation, instead of we are playing that forward cardinal stop anim, right? And then the forward facing as well, I think there is a bit of a foot slicing, as you can see. Sometimes, only sometimes, when we make a quick transition, there is a small foot slicing, foot sliding. Sorry for my word. Foot sliding is there, right? So maybe we can fix that as well in a future episode. But ideally, for both rotation modes, that stop cardinal direction based animation is now working properly, right? And that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.